Hi, I'm James, and this is Cowboy in Tokyo. As some of you may know, not from this channel, this is, I think, my first or second video, but from my time over on the ABL. Anyway, I'm an elder in the Presbyterian Church here in Japan. And there's something I wanted to talk about today that has some theological implications, but it's also very personal because a friend of mine took his life last week. Well, a friend of mine passed away last week, and it looks like he might have taken his own life. It's a possibility that it wasn't on purpose. The police marked it as sudden death, and it looks like it was an overdose from sleeping pills. Possibly not intentional, but probably. And the reason I'm addressing this is not to get everybody's, condolences or sympathy, but because there are questions that come up and have come up towards the family, and there are some things that I think need to be addressed. First and foremost, when somebody passes away, whether they've taken their own life or whether they're struck by lightning, it doesn't matter how somebody goes, they're gone. And what needs then is the family. The family are in need. We don't need to be talking about the person who's gone. So it doesn't matter. Gossip is, or talk about people who are no longer there, is not going to do anybody good, and it's just going to add to the grief that the family feels. That is, I think, first and foremost, because the family is in real need right now. This is a really good friend of mine, and his father is a very dear friend of mine. And he left 3 children behind, 3 siblings, and 2 very loving parents. And here's the other point, is that this is a friend of mine from church. And so theological questions come up. Well, he took his own life, or possibility that he did. Whether he did or didn't doesn't really matter, like I say. But at least the thought has gone through people's minds. What if he did? Where is he now? What does God say about that? Well, the Catholic belief, and we're not Catholic, it's Presbyterian Church, but it doesn't matter. I think it holds true across all time and space. That Jesus is the only way to God, to heaven. Why do I think that? Because I think being with Jesus is God in heaven. I think the creator of the universe wants to reconcile himself to us in Christ, and that is heaven. C.S. Lewis once said, we all get what we want, but we might not all want what we get in the end. It's not for us to judge where somebody went. But the Bible is very clear that nothing on heaven or earth or in all creation, neither angels nor demons, can separate you from the love of God in Jesus Christ. Mental illness certainly will not. And my friend was unstable. He'd been unstable for a number of years. He'd been into drugs, out of drugs. He'd had some run-ins with the police. And in the end, he'd found Christ. And he had made such changes in his life that were fantastic. But he was still haunted. And that was still hard to get through for him and for the family. For all of us, really. And so it hurts all the more when we see this happen. As a matter of fact, his favorite verse was Joshua 1:9, and he'd had it tattooed on him. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. I think that verse holds all the more important now that this has happened. But yeah, I wanted to talk about the fact that, one, it doesn't matter how people pass away. The fact is that the family needs your love and attendance and prayers now. Two, that when something like this does happen, you don't need to make excuses. If there are excuses to be made for the things that we do, God knows them. He is God. And He knows what's going on in our hearts and our minds. And like I say, if nothing can separate us from His love, then mental health is certainly not going to do it. His love for us is not bound to how we feel about it. And my kids wake up in the morning and they feel upset. I might have gotten angry with them, or they might have had a bad dream, or they just might be grumpy and gotten up on the wrong side of the bed. But how they feel about their relationship with me does not diminish my love for them in any way. The same is with us and God. It doesn't matter what we do. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. And He doesn't look at us. He looks at His Son. And we need to remember that. And lastly, and I think perhaps most prudently, is that if you yourself or someone you know feels unstable or suffers from depression or anything like that, reach out to somebody, please, before it's too late. If the person that you reach out to doesn't respond, reach out to somebody else. The only thing in all of creation that God didn't say was good was for us to be alone. It was before the fall, mind you. But God does not want us to be alone. We aren't. But it can certainly feel like we're alone. And it felt that way for my friend. This is harder to talk about than I thought. I'm going to leave it at that. If you're suffering, reach out to somebody. If you see somebody suffering, reach out. The thing is if it is you that's suffering, then please open up, because there are people who can see what's going on, but very rarely can we do anything unless you open up. And we love you. And we're glad that in his last years, my friend came to very strong, wonderful faith in Christ. He loved worship music. Man, was he a good-looking guy, and he could sing. He was in some movies and stuff, and he was popular with the ladies. And when he sang, people listened. He could sing. He could really sing. But he still suffered. And I'm glad now that he's not suffering anymore. I'm glad now that he doesn't have to doubt or worry. His sadness is gone. If you suffer, reach out. If you see someone who's suffering, reach out. Be blessed and be a blessing.